Okay, so for everyone just joining right now, my name is Devin Whittlespeck. I'm the IGNet community manager and editorial manager. I am here with a really great panel of people who are going to be talking about the big topic of reinventing and reimagining journalism, which is, not an easy one, but it's one that we're all really, really interested in. I know a lot of people, we're in this tough period in journalism right now, and to have a group that is really dedicated to getting together and finding solutions for this is something that I think we can all learn from. So I'm going to give a quick start. I'm going to introduce everyone, and then I'm going to be handing out to Mattia to continue this for the rest. So Mattia, Arjuna Knight Fellow Mattia Peretti, who will be moderating this, recently wrote for us this really great article on IGNet, which I'll link in our Facebook group and in the chat later. To reinvent journalism, start by updating its mission. I do want to quote something here on that, which is that trust in journalism is at an all-time low, engagement is declining, and the business outlook for the industry is uncertain at best. These are facts. The question is whether you think the situation is inevitable or if you believe things could be better. We're here with a panel of people who believe they can be better, which is awesome. We're excited about that. So today, Mattia Peretti will guide our panel as we explore innovative approaches to redefine journalism's mission, expand its horizons, and enhance user experiences. We have three experts in the field with him who will be sharing insights and practical solutions for making journalism more people-centric, empathetic, and impactful. I'm going to start with our moderator. Mattia Peretti is a learning experience designer and project manager working in journalism and media. He's also a 2024 ICFJ Knight Fellow, exploring how we might create new paths towards sustainability for journalism and imagining radical new solutions and by embracing extreme user centricity. From 2019 to 2023, he was the manager of journalism AI at Point Initiative of Polis, the journalism think tank at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and the Google News Initiative, where he was aimed at empowering news organizations to use artificial intelligence responsibly. Our first panelist, not moderator, is Annika Roran. She is a corporate level strategist for YLE, the Finnish National Broadcast Company. She previously worked for YLE News Lab, where she held roles as head of change, content production, and workflow, and head of audience insight. She was a visiting researcher at the European Broadcasting Union, where she was part of a small team that produced the live Eurovision debate. Her background is in journalism, but she's worked with bridging the editorial staff and their audience for the past few years. Our second panelist is Sanuta Raghu. She's an award-winning Indian journalist and television producer with more than 14 years of experience. Since 2016, she has built, shaped, and scaled Scroll.in's digital visual video newsroom, creating news projects for platforms with 6 million to 200 million users. She uses machine learning to understand which news formats are most appealing to different audiences, and is working on a tool to improve the way young audiences receive the news. And then finally, we have Aldana Vallis, an IGNet alum, here with us today. She's an Argentinian journalist specializing on how people interact with media. She leads the audience's experience team at Gannett, USA Today Network, where she designs holistic news products that help local newsrooms in the US build direct connections with their communities. Previously, she worked on audience and community research for the Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, and Documented. In a past life, she also covered US politics for Argentine media. Everyone, I want to just welcome everyone here to our panel. Mattia is going to be leading this for us, so I'm going to let him start. And if there's any, we'll do a Q&A towards the end. So I will go camera off while we let this amazing panel begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin, for the awesome introduction and for introducing our amazing speakers that I cannot wait to chat with in this conversation. On my side, I want to, thank you, IGNet, for the opportunity. And I'm really pleased to have this conversation because the topic of this webinar is what I've been obsessing about for the last 6 months during my Knight Fellowship with ICFJ. And I cannot wait to nerd out about it with all of you and our speakers here, Annika, Aldana, and Sanuta, who you will get to meet soon. But before we dive into the conversation, I wanted to use my moderator's privilege, sort of like to take a couple of minutes to set the stage for this conversation. So I just finished reading the biography of Steve Jobs, actually, a fascinating character, a genius, according to many, a dark character in many ways as well, if you're familiar with his life and personality. But I was struck by many things, of course. But towards the end of the book, the biographer, Walter Isaacson, referred to something that Jobs said in the very last few days before he died, reflecting on what motivated him throughout his personal life and professional life, especially. And I just wanted to put this quote on the screen so that we can read it together, and then I will explain why, of course. So let me see if I'm able to use the screen sharing function. Hopefully you see this slide soon. I see some nodding, so that's great. So this is what Jobs said. My passion has been to build an enduring company where people were motivated to make great products. Everything else was secondary. Sure, it was great to make a profit because that was what allowed you to make great products, but the products, not the profits, were the motivation. It's a subtle difference, but it ends up meaning everything. The people you hire, who gets promoted, what you discuss in meetings. Well, the reason why I shared this quote is because I believe that journalism as an industry, and it's all of us, not someone else, has lost its way. Because the economics are so dire and they have been for so long, too often I feel like we make decisions based on profits, not products, which is understandable. I'm not here to blame anyone nor to point fingers, but I really believe we urgently need to acknowledge this and reset course. We need to move back our focus to the quality of the products and the experiences that we create for the people we aim to serve, not because I don't understand the financial sustainability is important, but because I believe that people pay for information, products, and experiences that add value to their lives, that help them navigate this complex world we're in and make connections and feel connected to each other. And of course, I believe that the responsibility is on us to create these products and experiences that are so amazing and make people feel so good after interacting with them that they will recognize the monetary value of the service we're providing them. So as Jobs said, a focus on products rather than profits might seem like a subtle difference, but I do believe as well that it ends up meaning everything. And I've been motivated by these beliefs that I decided, and that's what made me decided to create a group of smart, empathetic, and innovative people. And Annika, Aldana, and Sanuta are three of them to see how together we might figure it out how to set this change and reinvention in motion. We're not going to solve the problems of journalism. We're not going to do it together during this webinar. We're not going to do it as a group of people we're working and discussing during the rest of the year. But we feel like we need to contribute, and we want to contribute with a positive attitude to kind of helping this change move forward. I call this group News Alchemists as a metaphor to represent their ability to create novel ideas and solutions, just as alchemists work to turn base metals into gold. So what are news alchemists? And here, give me a second to share my screen again so that I can read it out loud a second time. And I lost you, but hopefully you see that, yeah, News Alchemist is a movement that invites people and organizations in journalism to put people's needs and curiosity and the benefit of society at the center of everything they do. We believe as a group that journalism must be and can be reinvented, and that the only way to do that is to do it together. And we believe that an obsessive focus on creative value for people's lives and for our societies is the key to building the sustainable and equitable future we want. This is News Alchemist. This is in part us. I've seen that among the attendees, there are a few more of us as well. So hello to the News Alchemist listening, and hello to everyone else, again, who has been joining during my introduction. And these are really the topics I want to discuss with everyone here today. So I'm going to start now with a few questions and conversations with Annika, Aldana, and Sanuta. But then, as we said, we're going to open for Q&A, and you will be able to use the Q&A function here to ask your questions as well, and also share your thoughts so that we can discuss all together these topics and really what we can do to really reinvent, improve, change this industry and this field we care deeply about. I hope that made sense as an introduction, and it helps us kind of all start from the same point of view. And now you're probably tired of hearing my voice. I am as well. So I would love to start by asking my three friends and speakers here a very simple question. So what does this mission and vision and these things we've been discussing together over the last few months mean for you? Or in another way, what motivated you to join this group that News Alchemist you are a part of? We haven't decided on an order in advance, so I'm going to go pretty random. And why don't I say, Aldana, I'll ask this first to you.
Of course, I'll go first. Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this webinar and talk and discuss these great things that are very interesting to me, at least. I'm going to say that to me, the mission or everything that we have discussed in terms of having empathy in our work, in being people-centric, to me, hearing directly from our audiences, in my case, I lead an audience experience team, this is just the main way for me to keep me on track and to reflect on my mission as a journalist and someone working in audience, and think about how I can be more impactful and how we as an industry can be more impactful. As I said, I lead a team that is called Audience Experiences, and people-centric journalism is at the heart of our work. We couldn't do our job if we weren't, if we didn't follow this approach, right? When we work on making our content accessible to different audiences, the first step is always to understand what they value, where they are, of course, but also what they care about and how we can address their needs with our journalism, right? This understanding requires empathy. It requires us to be people-centric. And I'm very glad that I can discuss these type of topics with others who also share this interest. You're muted, sir.
Of course, that had to happen, right? Obviously, so I'm not muted anymore. Sorry for that. I was saying thank you, Aldana. You mentioned already some of the key concepts that we will be discussing and trying to unpack and understand better, of course, during this webinar, from the concept of empathy to talking about people centricity and the vocabulary we use around that we can discuss more in detail, and what it means to really be impactful and how we can create value, as I was saying in my introduction. But yeah, before that, Sanuta, do you want to go next and tell us a little bit? You know, I also want to acknowledge, I don't remember if it was mentioned in introduction, we are fellows, so you're also on this ICFJ fellowship journey with me, which is very excited. But tell me, what does all of this mean for you and how does it relate to your work?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. And this is, you know, such an interesting and important sort of the start to the conversation that, you know, we're having. I think early conversations we had, you know, made me realize that essentially we're talking about the same thing, right? So the kind of public interest journalism that many of us practice is a high cognitive load activity for our audiences, which means the emotional payoff at the end of that experience is often not positive. And we're swimming in this deluge of content today. So knowing this, how do we now communicate our value proposition and what changes do we need to put into action to make that happen, right? That's what I was hoping when I started, you know, participating in these conversations. And I'm really, really happy that we're working towards a lot of those. Yeah, I think that this is an important sort of start that we've made, and I'm very happy to be part of it.
Thank you, Sanuta. Thank you. Also, again, another round of interesting concepts to discuss during this webinar, so I'm looking forward to get back to that. So, Annika, coming back to you then to finish in this round of introduction. And again, I still remember vividly the first conversation you and I had a few months ago before the News Alchemist adventure started. And yeah, I'm really looking forward for you to share with the rest of the group what's on your mind as well.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing this kind of webinars. Just it's a summertime in Finland where I'm based, and but I was happy to see a few Finns in the crowd online. So great. what motivated me to join the News Alchemist, or before even it was anything official, I was super happy with the discussions we had with Mattia, because I felt that I found someone who was asking similar questions and trying to find positive and new narrative. Because lately, as was mentioned in introduction, the stories around media industry, journalism in special, been really negative. Like the finances, everything is difficult. Trust is declining, except in Finland, but rest of the world. And many things are struggling. We are struggling in many ways. But I definitely hope that we can find new ways to put our value proposition, as Sanut already mentioned, and find the ways to make this profession renew it in a way that it's needed and bring audience in the center. So that's why that's motivated, and I know that these questions and these discussions are huge, and we don't have the answers, and we don't need to have the answers. But I'm so happy to have this kind of peer group, therapy group, maybe to think about this and go through this, and maybe have some kind of starting points, and to go a bit further and try some new things. So thank you for organizing.
And yeah, I'm staying with you because, again, thinking of that same conversation we had, and I remember reading something that you were posting on LinkedIn as well at the time, and you were reflecting a lot on the concept that I also mentioned in my introduction of experiences, which I feel is something we're going to go back to during this time, and what do we mean when we think about experiences. And I really liked the time because you were describing it as the overall experience we create. So not only the user experience, not just on a website, not just the quality of a piece of content. And I believe you were even mentioning, how our user interface and how that makes people feel, as I said in the introduction, and, maybe the high cognitive load that Sanuta was describing. So maybe bring us, into your work around this, and how do you think of these concepts, and how do you apply it, and how do you help maybe also your colleagues and organization to think through the quality of these experiences that we try to create?
I've been really thinking about the experiences lately. That's been like a main topic that I've been trying to tackle, because I feel that in digital world where I come from at the moment, my background is in journalism. I've been doing audience research and strategy and everything, but at the moment I work with our digital products in YLE, a Finnish broadcasting company, and I feel that the company's strategy means that we need to have more personalized and more like intense relationship with people to be meaningful and to have a place in a Finnish media landscape in the future, and to stay relevant for next 100 years. And for what to do for that is that we need to have the stronger digital performance, stronger digital portfolio. And not only the portfolio and not only the digital products are actually the goal, it's the relationship and it's the experience we are trying to build with the portfolio. And I think that there's so many opportunities on digital. It's not only platforms that we are publishing our content, and even that we used to say that content is the king. I don't really believe in that sentence anymore, because I think that we need more. Of course, we need the brilliant content. We need that really quality, well thought content, news or any kind of content. But we do need to think through about the user experience, and then we also need well-working technology, and it's a combination that really brings the experience. And when we understand our audiences and the needs we have, we all have different needs. Like I prefer text and someone prefers audio, or someone needs to have a longer version and someone needs to have like 10-second version. And digital brings that, and AI and many other technologies bring the opportunities that we can actually have personalized experiences within our product. So I think that there's so many things and angles that we need to think through still. But there's something that I would love to have this kind of narrative in journalism and in media in general. And not just to concentrate on the content. Of course, we need to talk about the topics and angles and tone of voices and all that too. I don't want to underline it, but it's the combination.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously resonates with me a lot, the idea of moving beyond thinking of equating kind of like the journalism with the creation of content. That's something I've been very vocal about lately. And I think the concept of experiences that we are discussing is very related to that. And it's kind of natural to come back to you with this, Aldana, because as you mentioned in the introduction, experiences is literally part of your job title. So maybe you mentioned it in your first answer, but could you tell us a bit more about role at Connect, and how do you think of experiences in your organization?
Sure, absolutely. Well, this role was created less than a year ago, I want to say. And this team was created out of the belief that we need to understand the news experience from a holistic perspective. Mm-hmm. That our interaction with our audiences goes beyond the distribution of our content, the publishing of our content, like Annika was saying, right? To me, this means truly understanding how people consume information and how we fit in their lives, so we can offer something that will resonate with them, right? This way we can create news products, news experiences that people care about, and they will build a routine, a habit of coming to us for the information that they need. This journey starts with distribution, sure, of course, with us introducing them to our journalism. But that's just the beginning of the relationship that someone can have with our content, right? Let me give you an example of what I mean by understanding how we fit in their lives. Last year, our local audiences team wanted to create coasters and distribute these coasters in bars. The coaster would have a QR code that someone could scan with their phones and come to the local newsroom's website. Now, we have this question: where should that QR code take you to if you scanned it? What would be the right content for us to distribute using this QR code, right? So as someone thinking about the audience experience, I thought about the context, right? You're distributing this at a bar. So someone is at a bar when encountering this coaster for the first time. The content needs to be compelling enough for them to, let's say, stop a conversation that they're having with their friends at the bar, and then use their phones to scan this and read whatever we are trying to distribute here. So instead of being disruptive to that situation, we went for a trivia-like piece, which is something that happens in this kind of environment, to be additive to that situation, to that experience. So it's not just the experience that they have on our platform, but also being mindful of the experience that they are having while they are interacting with our content, right? This is just an example of what audience experience means to me and to my team.
I absolutely love that example, and as you described it, as being additive to the experience that they are already having in their life, because explore for all of us, interacting with any content, with journalism, with information, doesn't happen in a vacuum, obviously. So this is incredibly powerful. As powerful, I thought it was what you said about the distribution being the beginning of the journey, because it may sound counterintuitive, right? Sometimes it feels like the end of the journey. So I have written an article, it's been all the editing, it's been done, it's been published, it's been distributed on social media, work done. I can go on and write the next article, right? So like flipping this on its head and thinking of the distribution at the beginning of the journey, I think it's a really powerful way to look at one of the many ways that the concepts and the ideas we're discussing can be implemented there. So fascinating. Thank you for that. And Sanuta, I don't remember, I apologize if you mentioned that already a couple of minutes ago, but I love that in your fellowship, you have been talking about this concept of the net positive news experience, which I sounded fascinating because, of course, sometimes the argument is, yeah, but not all journalism will make people feel good, obviously, and still it's important that people are informed about, wars and bad things that are happening on the planet. So why don't you tell us a bit more about this net positive news experience and the way you think of it? Because I know of it already and it's fascinating. So I would love everyone else to hear about it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I love everything that Aldana just said right now, and I'm in a very similar ballpark. So two parts to this, right? So net positive news experience and formats. So I borrow net positive from net zero, which is a climate change term. So one of my day jobs at Scroll is to produce a solutions-based TV program on climate change, which is where sort of this comes from. So we know that the audiences, have said for a very long time now that news is difficult to consume. Hard news is difficult to consume. And they deliberately avoid certain kinds of news. It leads to a bad mood, negative emotions arise, and all of that, right? So my project focuses on how we can achieve a state where the information knowledge payoff is greater than the negative emotional payoff that news brings in. And making it net positive in the process. So that's what I'm researching largely on during my fellowship. And then it finally comes down to how we deliver our news and journalism, right? Which is what formats can lead us to. And that's what, would lead to a net positive experience. So this is sort of a broad hypothesis. I'm hoping I will achieve something out of it, but I'm very excited to work on it, and I have another 8-10 months to sort of really figure this out.
Which I know from personal experience, it doesn't sound like enough time at all. So
Not at
that's
all.
I'm really glad we're going to continue the conversation during this time together. Well, thank you all. I thought it was very important to start from this concept of the news experience because I feel it's something that we mention a lot. I use the word experiences probably 4 times in my introduction. And so like understanding the way you think of it, I think it's key kind of like to set the tone for the rest of the conversation we're having. And I'm also loving already that there are the first comments and questions in the Q&A chat. So just a reminder for everyone to keep them coming. I am keeping an eye on them and I want to use them and get your voice in across the conversation. And in a way, the question that Anne is asking is very relevant. It's something that we wanted to discuss already in our planning because we talk about audience-centered journalism. We've been mentioning user centricity. I talk about extreme user centricity as well to refer to what I was saying before in our mission about thinking about with everything we do, thinking about the impact it has on people and not just because it's good writing and therefore we should be proud of ourselves of that. So Anna is asking, I've read about audience-centered journalism and people-centered journalism. So how do you see the difference between those? I know it's a conversation we have been having also internally in the group, users, people, audiences, human-centered design, a lot of concepts. And I don't think, at least that's my opinion, let me see if one of you will correct me, that there is a right or wrong. But one of you, Sanuta, I know you had opinions and ideas around this, right? You and I have been chatting before. So how do you think of that and what do you prefer to use to make more sense of what we're discussing?
I was just fascinated by something I read, that, a lot of people already know this, right? So I'm repeating and I'm preaching to the choir. But there are only 2 industries which refer to their customers as users, and that's, drugs and computers. This is an often quoted sort of line. And I'm a little uncomfortable with the word users after, I came across this quote. Uh, so I think in our newsroom as well, so our editor insists on never using the word people either, which is, even within an article, within a script. So we always go with an action word. So, in this case, it would be readers, it would be viewers, it would be listeners. So that's what we're looking at right now. These things, have a life of their own and tend to change. But Yeah, I mean, still sort of chewing on this, and what this could be. But I think, I mean, if we were to look at the broader conversation about it and sort of just go beyond engagement and clicks, the fundamental sort of underline would be to humanize the people who are consuming the journalism, that we produce. And if we were to look at vocabulary that sort of takes that into account, what are our shared goals? What are our shared values? And if that could somehow translate into the vocabulary we use to define them and the work that we do, I think that would be a very small start.
That's excellent. And yeah, internally in our group, when we talk about it, we introduce the concept of a popcorn discussion, right? Where we pop like a popcorn and no wait for the moderator to intervene. So Annika, Aldana, is there anything you wanted to add without me asking a question to you?
I could add. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No,
just
please
go
please.
Just quickly. I think that what I've been reading and working with is, I think it's all the same, like product thinking, design thinking, audience centric, user centric. Everything goes back to understanding and knowing to whom you are working with, and what kind of needs you are trying to, or problems you are trying to solve. So it's like, it doesn't matter what word you are actually using, human centric. Just pick one and share it with your team, that everyone is understanding that if you are talking about audience, it means something, and if you're talking about users, it tells something. We had that problem in YLE a couple of years ago when we started, when I started in audience research, that we were talking about things and people and audience, and it melted and it was a mess, and we were talking. We were trying to talk about the similar stuff, but then we were, talking different things. Someone was talking about the target group and someone was talking about the whole nation. And so you just need to have vocabulary for your team or for your newsroom, but it doesn't matter if it's audience, user, what's good for you. That's how I think now, because we've been thinking about the product thinking, and then we've been reading a lot about the design thinking, and how to serve your audience, how to serve people, how to solve the problems. That's the goal that I'm trying to achieve. That was my Aldana for you.
No, I think that's a great point. And I will also add this tiny thing. I think journalism is an industry of words. So I think using the right word for the right occasion matters to our industry, right? So if we say user, let's say we are borrowing this term from other industries, that's fine. But in our industry, words matter, right? So if we're talking about the reading experience, then I think we can talk about the reader, right? That is the right word to use for that occasion. Are we talking about an audio experience? We can call them listeners. I use user when I'm talking about platform-centered conversations, right? Navigation aspects. But we do care about words, and that's why we're having this discussion, I think, in the end. We do care about which one we use, and I think it's just something that we need to do like we would do in any other occasion. Use the right term for the right occasion, and that's it.
I love that. That's, I think, a good way to sum it up. And Anne, I hope this is helpful for your PhD on these topics. But this is, this is an excellent conversation. And I agree with the idea of kind of like adapting the language to sort of like the situation and the context there. And going beyond, I think, the wording that we use, the vocabulary, not because they're less important, otherwise I wouldn't have asked, but still I feel like there is also a lot to unpack in the concept of user centricity that sometimes we take for granted. Same if we call it people centricity or audience centricity. There's a question from Catherine in the chat that I think is helpful in this regard, like how could a journalist who want to report objectively still satisfy his audience? And I think there is a lot still, sometimes a misunderstanding. Even when I published my recent article, one of the comments I got was like a pushback towards user centricity, because if we only give people what they want, then we only end up producing cat videos, which is kind of understandably still a lot of what people think of user centricity, but it's not what we're trying to mean. But clearly, still a lot to unpack. So very general question, and please to take it in any direction you want. But how do you describe user centricity? What does it mean for you to put the user or the person or the reader at the center of the experience?
Popcorn is not working here. So,
you are making it work.
Yeah, I get that, and I get that question many times when I talk about the user centricity or thinking about the audiences. But I don't want to do things. I'm a journalist. I need to be objective. It doesn't mean that you are not reporting important stuff and be objective. You just the thing that how I feel is that when you understand your audience and then you can understand the different needs they have, different ways of using media, you can get to them better. And that's the mission that I still think that we all have, to get the research and fact-checked information into our audiences. But the media landscape is so different than it used to be, as that's the basic stuff that we know already. So how to be relevant and be at the right place at the right time in a right content that fits in your life, in a busy life. So that's the thing, that you are not really only publishing or doing cat videos. You do that also because we need that. There's a place and time for that content as well, but that's not the case. And of course it goes to the topics and content as well, because then when you know your audience's life and their needs and their troubles and their hopes and dreams, you know what kind of topics they are asking, what kind of questions they are asking, what kind of problems they are trying to find solutions. So that also goes to that. But mostly it goes that you are bringing the important stuff to their lives in the right ways. So that's why you need to know your audience.
Absolutely. Anything to add?
I would add that being audience-centric, people-centric, shouldn't be prescriptive in a sense. It's more like a compass for our work. We produce journalistic content. This is what we offer to the world. There is information out there, and our job is to find it, compile it in different formats, in different ways, and make sure that people can access that, right? But for that compilation to work, for people to consume this, we need to understand what will resonate with them, right? And being audience-centric is just one way to do that, right? One way to understand, for example, the audience's needs. I think, Mattia, you mentioned this earlier. We don't report in a vacuum. I mean, we report for people, right? And we need to understand what they are needing, in a sense. If they need to be up to date with something, with current events, let's say, that's a very different need from, let's just say, help me understand what's happening, right? And if I want to create content, produce content, it's going to be very different to address those two specific needs, right? If I want to update you on something, a text message maybe can be enough. If I want to explain inflation, on the other hand, that will probably require much more than a quick message, right? So being user-centric, it's not about objectivity. It's not about it's not about reporting on some things and not reporting on other things because maybe people won't read it, but it's also about informing how we go about producing that type of content, right? And also, this can help us inform how we can evaluate our own work. Can we find any gaps between what people need and what we are doing? Are there any unmet needs that can be an opportunity for us to keep improving our job? So again, I don't think this approach is prescriptive in a sense that you should only report on things that people want, but it's also it helps us inform how we do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
just a sub point to what, sorry, could I come in?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, just a sub point to what Aldana was already saying, right? And I mean, just a disclaimer that every time we talk about user centricity or user needs, and everybody who's on the fence gets always asks us, should we just pivot to cat videos now? Is that what the user wants? So this is far more common than one would expect. But I think one sort of exercise before implementing user needs would be to do a check at your end, as in the journalism organization's end, is what is my value add to the ecosystem? Like I said earlier, we're in this deluge of content. What is my value add, and at which touch point am I capable of meeting my reader, listener, or viewer, right? So for example, like I was telling you, we produce a TV program on climate change. And we're a small newsroom. We don't have the mandate or the resources to cater to, the update me or, keep me on trend. But very early on, we decided that we will operate in the give me perspective field. And that's what we're able to do really well. So are we able to cater to all the audiences across all the needs that they may have? Not really. But we're able to zoom in on one, and that's what our sort of resources allow for. So knowing where you stand in the ecosystem and which touch point you're capable of meeting, at which touch point you're capable of meeting, I think that is could be an exercise as a predecessor to sort of implementing these needs for your users.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for everything you shared, because I think it's very valuable to understand better the concept. And of course, as we say a lot internally as a group as well, we are very aware that we are building on the shoulders of giants, as we used to say. So of course, the concept of user needs is being pioneered by the BBC, and now it's very common and used in many newsrooms. And a lot of other things, of course, there are incredible initiatives and projects that are already working towards making journalism more people-centric, empathetic, and more impactful as well. So I think that's important to acknowledge, and equally important to acknowledge the amazing questions that we're getting in the chat, which I keep looking at because it's super helpful. And thank you everyone who has asked a question already. Time is flying, so I will admit already that we're not going to get to answer all the questions, but let's continue to focus on those, because I think there are some very valuable ones there to touch upon. For example, Anand, I think, is making a point that it's critical in this conversation that we're having about user centricity and user needs, that user needs risk, if we're not careful, to put all our focus on the users we already have, neglecting audiences we're not reaching, not even trying to reach maybe audiences that are intentionally not coming to us because they don't see the value in what we're producing. And that's, of course, a risk that we discuss as a group as well, and that we are aware of, which maybe helps me to like bring in this type of question as well. Like, how do you think of user centricity and of all these concepts that we've been describing also as a way to help you understand what people that you are not reaching already in your country, in your communities, could be interested in your work, and therefore what you can do to think of that and lure them, not for profit, but again, because you think you have value to add to their lives?
I will say that I don't agree. Sorry. I think that in my case, I have implemented the same approach to understand groups that weren't coming to read or interact with our journalism for some reason, but I didn't know the reason, right? So the same approach that we are talking about this idea of empathy, this idea of understanding what's going on with this group of people, and what they value is something that you can apply to your current audience. Perfect to understand maybe what they are valuing or what can be done better, but also to understand those who are not reading you, who are not part of your audience. And I think that's where it has actually more value in a sense, because that can help you grow, that can help you address some needs within a group that currently you're not serving, right? And to understand why that is happening, this approach is that sense. So that's why, in a sense, I don't entirely agree with that.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that you don't agree, because I think it's very important. We're talking about concepts that are hard to understand and easy to misinterpret. And so very often, sometimes we may just disagree, of course, but sometimes I think we're just understanding the same concept in a different way, and therefore we have a different interpretation. And in that sense, I noted before you said about using user centricity as a compass. Like, it's not a tool that you linearly implement. It's not talking about user needs. For me, at least, doesn't mean asking your existing readers what they want and then doing exactly what they want. Then I understand this is not the type of approach we want to have, but using it as a compass to figure out what people need from journalism, what people that are already your readers and not need from your organization and from journalism as an ecosystem, as we were describing it, to navigate their lives, to be informed, but also to feel like they have agency, to participate in the public discourse, and so on. Sanuta, I saw you nodding vigorously, so I feel like you have something to add to this.
I do. I think, a lot of newsrooms have realized that moving away from people like us, makes business sense also, right? It gives you a much broader audience. So, for example, India, where I am, we have about 700 million people with smartphones, access to the internet, access to cheap internet. But for a small newsroom like us, for example, we're not able to reach all of them with the resources that we have. So we are piloting a product, it's a video product, which will help us, sort of make inroads into, these mass consumers, right? And I know a lot of news organizations who are on a similar path where you're trying to break outside of your usual cohort, find out what users who are not already subscribed to you, who are not already loyal users, who don't already consume you, what they are consuming it, because it makes business sense. You're expanding your circle, you want to sort of reach more and more people. The potential in a country like India is very, very large. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be wrong to say that newsrooms are not looking or only looking at people like us. We're definitely moving away from that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for adding this. Annika, did you want to add anything before I move to the next question?
We can move on. I just wanted to say that I think exactly this Aldana told before. So
fantastic.
Do not stay and watch only the data that you get from your own and your audiences at the moment. You need to understand the whole nation, whole people, and do the research.
And I wanted to pick up a couple of more questions. And again, I apologize to all the questions that we will not get to ask here, but thank you again for bringing your perspective here. A couple of questions made me think also something that one of us in the group said at some point over the past few months, that being people-centered and having empathy towards our users should also extend to having empathy towards the people that work in the newsroom as well, because that's hard work as well, and they're also people we need to center on, to kind of not put on them the onus that you are doing it wrong, now you have to do something different to serve the audience better. And I think there was a question, let me scroll there, from Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy, another one of the News Alchemist, who was asking, how do we help reporters and editors conceive of personalized stories without feeling like they lose their agency and strip them of what they love about our craft, of course. So I guess, can you bring us somehow into conversations that you might have been having with your editorial colleagues as well about this, and if you can, and what have you seen working, and like how are they responsive to this idea of then, you know, thinking of journalism through this people centricity type of lens? Anything, you know, I guess that you feel like it's a positive an experience that you want to share with the group that may have worked for you.
In my experience, reporters actually do care about what their audience thinks. So I think appealing to that sense, they really understand their mission. They might not be entirely aligned with some changes, but they do care about the audience. So I think appealing to that interest, I think it's key for anything. And in my case, as someone who is, in a sense, the voice of the audience within the newsroom, I think that my job is also to make sure that they can access that type of information, right? The same way that I care about the audience accessing information in general, I care about reporters, editors, journalists accessing the information that they need to do their job. And in this case, it might be some audience insights, some direct feedback from readers. They really value that. And I think that's one way to appeal to that.
I feel the same. And at least in our newsroom, journalists tend to love big numbers. So if you can tell them that the changes they've made in their work actually bring new people in, and they're doing their job great. So, but it's a long way, and you need to be there, support, show. You know, if you've been doing your work in a similar way for 15, 20 years, and then you suddenly need to change and try to do short videos, for example, just a case, you need support, and they will do it amazingly when they have the support and someone who is actually teaching and telling, and then it's super great when you can show that the work that they've been really doing and trying to find the ways actually works well. So it's hard. It's a struggle in a way, but it's also really rewarding when it's happening and you can see the change.
And thank you for putting that on the table, Annika, because I think it's critically important. We talk about it a lot in our internal conversations that, yeah, this is hard. Like, change is hard for us as human beings, before us people working in journalism. Change is what we try to avoid if we can, is not pleasant. So this is like I feel like what we're doing in a way is trying to build critical mass, as you were saying, to show not only why change is important, but also why change is beneficial to everyone, you know, also to the same people who we are inviting to change in many ways, they will benefit as well. Sanuta, I may have interrupted you, so was there anything you wanted to add on this?
Not very different from what both Aldana and Annika have said. You know, it is really hard, but just a small observation that, say, 10, 12 years ago, right? There was this very, very different atmosphere where journalists used to write for journalists and, you know, used to produce for journalists. But now this is completely anecdotal, but I see it shifting slightly because of the data we see, because of the numbers we see. And it's sort of automatically and very organically turning to being user-centric. And I think it's nice. I think we may need a little bit of both, but it's an observation that, you know, while we are having this discussion, you know, the, tide is slowly turning, is my observation.
And that's an element of optimism and positivity that we need. I mean, just for everyone listening here, it's something that we agreed with as part of this News Alchemist group from the beginning, as we have these complex conversations. And of course, very often we end up sharing frustrations as well. At the very least, we agreed that we want to approach this with the positive and optimist attitude that we believe we can improve things. It's hard, it's really hard and painfully slow, but that we do believe that this change is actually happening already. Like, it's not that nothing is happening and now we arrive to save the world and make the change happen. Like, we feel like we want to support the change, sort of like, and maybe help accelerate it in a way. We're getting towards the end, and as I said, too many questions. I think there's one from Lucas in the chat that I love. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I want to put it as a question to the panelists here, because it's such a complex question that I am still not know how to approach it. Lucas is asking, we're talking a lot about user needs, which are individual needs. So how should we think about the needs of communities, societies, and democracies? Like, is viewing these through the prism of user or citizen needs the best approach? I'm not trying to ask you if you have an answer for this, because I doubt you do, but is this something that you've also been thinking on, that it's on your mind in any way?
Yeah, actually, that was actually spot on question, as we are trying to, at the moment, draw a concept where is the user needs together with the society's needs. So yeah, super. We don't have the answer yet, but let's see how it. Maybe next year when we are all together again, then maybe I have something that we've been drawing. But that's exactly what we've been working on. So.
And that's, again, our optimism on display, because I wouldn't even dare to say that in 1 year we will have the answer. So, okay, we're getting towards the end. I think we have last 4 minutes. It's a year of elections. So I feel like, as the moderator, I have to ask, do you have any parting words that are not prompted by a question of mine that you want to share before we start wrapping it up?
I just want to say thank you. And I want to say that that's the same question that I ask readers, viewers, listeners. Every time that I finish an interview with them, is there anything else that I haven't asked that you want to share with me? But I just want to say thank you. I think these questions that we received, and the also the conversations that we've had, I don't know, it might be the optimism that is required in a sense, to think about changes and to think that this can be improved. That, I don't know, I think I'm just grateful for that.
Me too.
Thank you all then. Devin, I see you're back on screen with us, so I'm gonna give it to you in a minute to wrap us. What is it? Wrap us out, wrap us off? Sometimes my English doesn't work at the end of a conversation like this. But anyway, you know what I mean. Anyways, well, thanks everyone from my point of view as well. I hope this was interesting. I hope you are not feeling that this News Alchemist thing is like a closed secret group. Like, it's the first time I think we're talking about it in public. So big thanks for Aldana, Annika, and Sanuta to helping me start sharing what we're discussing. We're prototyping this type of thing, and we want to see how it develops and what we're learning, and we want to continue expanding the conversation. Not having the chat function, I don't have the opportunity to share with you a couple of links of articles I have written about what we've been discussing, but I believe that maybe, Devin, this can be delivered to everyone after the webinar together with the recording, right?
Yes, of course. So everyone, thank you so much for my end right here, just listening to all this cautious optimism, but optimism of what we can do and the abilities we can do to fix some of the big, severe problems we have in journalism right now. That was amazing. And it was, just, I think everyone here is really appreciative of everything you guys had to say. Like Mattia was saying, we will have a recording of this up hopefully by the end of the week on YouTube. We're going to be posting that to our IJNet Pamela Howard forum on crisis reporting, including the links that Mattia is going to provide to me. So please keep an eye on it on our crisis reporting page. That's on Facebook. And it's also available if you click on IJNet at the top of the site. There will be a link to that you can join. Everyone, thank you so much today. Mattia, amazing job just bringing this group together. And then Annika, Aldana, Sanuta, thank you so much for bringing your insights in. We are really appreciative of you. So we're going to wrap it up here. thank you everyone once again, and thank you everyone who joined today. And we'll hopefully this spark some ideas that's gonna we can continue this innovation and conversation going forward. So
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, David and IGNet team.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye.